In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Amedda for the Revenge of the Sith line. Arguably one of the most important characters in the prequel trilogy. He is the Vice Chancellor under both Valorum and into Palpatine, and he kind of continues that role into the early Galactic Empire era. To be honest, I'm not sure exactly what happens to him during the times of the original trilogy. I would have to go back and research that. But I'm sure, of course, Palpatine and Anakin were very instrumental to the rise of the Empire. Of course, so many others like Dooku and even Maul to an extent. But I'm sure Mas Amedda was very instrumental as well, and he really doesn't get talked about very much. And in the movies, we really don't see him do a whole lot outside of standing next to Palpatine. We see him stick his tongue out like this every now and then he shouts out "Orda" in the Galactic Senate there. And he has a couple other lines of dialogue, like "This is a crisis. The Senate must approve of the use of clones," and things like that. But definitely a very important character that doesn't get discussed very often. Fortunately, Hasbro made some fantastic action figures of him. So you have this one, and there's also one from the Power of the Jedi line, which is based on his appearance from the Phantom Menace. And I have considered getting that action figure before. I might do that at some point. It's not too hard to get a hold of. You could probably get on eBay and find one for like $10 or $15, $20 at most. So perhaps I'll do that at some point. But between the two, I think this is probably his more iconic look. I think when people think of Mas Amedda, they think of him more from Revenge of the Sith. Because it seems like, I wouldn't say he necessarily gets more screen time in Revenge of the Sith, but he's definitely more striking, I guess, within that film. And of course, we see him alongside Palpatine as he makes his infamous speech about the end of an era with the Republic, and then now the establishment of the Empire. I'll just go ahead and show this now. You can't take the tongue out. Give him a little bit more of a neutral expression there. So I got this action figure in 2020 alongside Askak, Manatils, and so many other senators that I was purchasing at the time. I do recall seeing him in stores quite frequently back in 2005. It's hard to say if he was a peg warmer, but he was definitely one of those characters where if you really wanted to get him at retail, you were probably going to find him. And similar to many of the other characters I've been reviewing recently, I think he's another one of those ones where you appreciate more as you get older. As a kid, I wasn't really too particular about having this guy in my collection, so it's one of those things where it's like, years later, it's nice to finally have him to help fill out displays more. And plus, if you have a Chancellor Palpatine, he's kind of an essential character. Or Chancellor Valorum, even. So that head sculpt there is very nice. Obviously, that's more of a menacing expression for him. You can see his teeth there, and as you can see with the tongue, it's very interesting how they did that. So the tongue there just wraps around the teeth, and you just plug it into place. Very impressive engineering. Not something we ever really see with Star Wars action figures. It's probably the only action figure in Star Wars that has a tongue accessory that I can think of. So he has these antlers here, or his horns. I think those are a part of him. They're not part of his headdress here. Yeah, similar to how it is down here at the end of his head tails, I guess. So the species is Chagrian, I think it is, or something like that. It's from the planet of, Chagria, or Champala, depending who you ask. I think in the Star Wars universe it was referred to as two different names. Very nice face sculpt and paint detailing. And you can see a little bit the detailing in the back of his head here. Looks really good. Now, I think you could take this headdress off. I have seen some samples online where it came off, but I can't really get mine to pry off. And to be honest, I don't really want to risk trying to pry that off in case it's not really meant to come off. But I don't think there's a whole lot to really see anyway, and I don't want to risk breaking that. But if you happen to have this action figure in your collection, let me know in the comments if that's meant to come off or not. As for the rest of his robes here, it's very elegant. You can see the detailing around his collar here. Looks really good. See his robes here has a nice texturing detail and looks really good. The aesthetic of it is very nice. You can take this robe off if you wanted to. And it really shouldn't be that difficult to do. In fact, let's see if we can do that right now. Yeah. Not too difficult. Just kind of give you a different perspective on him. No cut on the side of his robes here, so he's pretty much going to be a statue or a traffic cone from the waist down, but that's all right. And thankfully he has enough of a cut there in his sleeve where it's easy enough to put this on and take it off. Very nice detailing in his hands there. He has the black fingernails. And his boots here. Kind of has curved feet, but they might have done that just to accommodate for his stance. In terms of articulation, he actually has a lot more articulation than you would think. So I think he pretty much has a swivel neck, or at least that's how it's going to operate. Yeah, it can't really get any up and down motion. So pretty much just a swivel. Then hinged shoulders, hinged elbows, and swivel wrists. Swivel waist, I think, maybe. Yeah, I think there's swivel waist there. And I think that's pretty much it. But I think that's pretty good articulation for a character that you're mostly just going to be having stand around. In terms of weapons and accessories, he does not have a stand like many other Revenge of the Sith action figures, but he doesn't need one anyway because his robes help keep him standing up. Have never had any problems with him. Does have a staff, which looks pretty good. I think it's unique to him. Most of the details are at the end here. It is a very soft plastic, so would recommend being a little careful with that. You can have him hold it pretty well in each hand if you wanted to. Then, of course, the famous accessory is the tongue. That's split in the middle here. Kind of similar to like a snake. And I don't think it really matters which way you put the tongue on. Obviously, you just wedge it on the sides of his teeth there, or his mouth. You can have it facing that way. Or that way as well. And it stays into place very good. Easy enough to put into place and to take out. But I think that's really cool. It's a element of an action figure that I think makes this action figure worthwhile by itself is just that tongue. Put him in a diorama where he's sticking his tongue out at another senator is like the back off or something along those lines. I think he does it as like his since he's calling order in like the Galactic Senate, for instance, instead of hitting a mallet calling for order, he just sticks his tongue out. Seems to be about the only time he really does it. But maybe they're similar to like a reptile where they need to stick their tongue out to smell. I'm going to have to look into that a little closer. And does a nice job concealing his mouth. But I think that's all I can really tell you about Mas Amedda. We'll bring out a couple comparison figures that are very important for him, alongside the main Chancellor, Palpatine, and then Palpatine's assistant, Sly Moore. All three of these look great together. Would be nice to do the same thing with Chancellor Valorum. In fact, I'll bring out Valorum here real quick. And they look really good together too. Only thing is we need the Saitaria in the place of Sly Moore for Valorum. I would hope Hasbro would make an action figure of her at some point, but I don't know if that's going to be happening at this point. But it's great that we at least got these three together. So would I recommend Mas Amedda for your collection? I definitely would if you're a fan of the character, fan of a senatorial display or anything related to that. Of course, if you have Chancellor Palpatine, you probably need the Vice Chancellor alongside with him. And even if you have an Imperial Senate or anything along those lines, I think he's a great character to add to that as well. But overall, it's a fantastic action figure. It has a lot of innovative features about it that we don't normally see from Hasbro Star Wars, and quite frankly, we haven't really seen since, particularly the tongue. But it's a great action figure. Happy he's a part of my collection. He looks great displayed alongside these other two here. Between this one or the Power of the Jedi one, I guess it comes down to your personal preference. I think this one's a more iconic look for him. But as I mentioned, I probably will get the Power of the Jedi one at some point, just whenever I get around to it. I'll be sure to do a video for him as well. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more reviews in the future. There'll always be more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all your support. And check out some of the links in the description if you haven't done so already. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.